Welcome to week 3 of the double hoop Bonanza. Week 1 we pulled the fabric. Week 2 we went over the fabric strips. So if you missed week 1 and week 2, be sure to go back to my YouTube channel and watch those videos so you're all caught up so you can do the fun stitches in this one. This week we are going to learn the back stitch, the long stitch, a whip stitch, a poofy stitch is what I like to call it, and the weave stitch. So these two are brand new stitches that I'm sure you are going to love. And remember, have fun. So once we have our design template on here, and mine, I lined this up and mine was actually a little bit off. So if your design template is off from your hoop, so the hoop isn't lining up to the template that you have, that's when I would go and I would start gauging and using your eye to make your own template and maybe even play around with it and come up with something different. I'm gonna do the poofs first, and then I will do this stitching, and then I'll do the back stitch, and then I will do this. And the reason for that is that this macrame cord frays really easily. And I did it first, or second, I guess. And so the more I worked, the more it frayed. And so you can see it's really frayed over here, which I think it looks okay, but if I had to prevent it, I think I would. And so we're gonna do that last. So I'll show you this Dream Poofy stitch first. And it's with the tapestry needle, and it's our 4-inch square with our triangle tip at the front. And you're going to take that and stick it into the eye of your tapestry needle. And this cotton fabric threads pretty easily. If you need, you might need to make a fresh end. You just pull it through a little bit so it'll stay, and then you put a knot in your big end, and you will just stick your needle up through the back of your, so you want your knot on the back end, so we're going to go up first. And you want to make sure your needle goes through a hole in the monk's cloth so it can make it, so it can fit. And it is thicker than most that it's used to, so you do have to kind of wiggle it through, but once you wiggle it, it will go through just fine. So you pull it all the way through till your knot hits, and then you're going to kind of play with this as you go. So you're just gonna shape it and mold it with your hands as you work. So this one's might create something fun there, or not. So I'm going to move this so it goes the other way so it makes a puff, and I'm going to want it to kind of go like this. So I'm going to put my needle up about an inch, I guess, up this way. Go through the hole again, wiggle it through, and pull it through. And then once you get it somewhat pulled through, you're going to want to go slow, because this is where you're going to gauge, and you're going to form it with your fingers as you work. So this is how, that's a little big, and you can even just pull the sides to kind of make those. You can even just tuck it in like this. You can make it maybe a big like this. And then you'll take your needle and go to the next one. And your poofs will kind of lay close together, so maybe about an inch, and kind of close to that line. So you'll make it go up, and then make it go down. Oops. Pull it through. Stop and poof it with your fingers. Just like that. And then you'll just keep going that same way to fill in the whole thing. And you might want some little, you might want some big, and it's that easy. You just kind of play with it. And then when you're done, you'll go ahead and make a knot here and just tie it off at the back. And trim your fabric. So that's the poof. And here's the back of my project for when I did it. I have some closer together, some really close together, and then somehow I got this big poofy thing here. Oh, I think that's the end. And I never tied it. But yeah, so it'll be kind of look like that. I think I must have just tucked that in there. All right, now to move on to the stitching around the hoop, we're gonna wanna cut a hole in our fabric. And to do that, you just trim it as close as you can. And since we're stitching around this hole, we don't need to have it super close because our stitches will keep the frays at bay. But you do want to try and get it as close as you can. And then once you have that, you're going to want to use your tapestry needle with the 1/4 inch thick strips of fabric. We have a strip of fabric. This one's pretty worn. We'll get our new fresh one. And sometimes, they have a lot of frays on them, which I really like that look. But sometimes if there's too many frays, then you're gonna wanna make your strip a little bit thicker, because if there's too many frays, then sometimes it gets all knotted up and it doesn't look quite as fresh. And for this, you're going to thread it just like the thick fabric. And then knot it. And so then you stick your needle through the back first, so the knot is at the back. Pull it through. This is also kind of the whip stitch. Then you just stick your needle in and go to the back again. I'm gonna actually work from the back here so I can see. You're gonna want your stitches really close together, so you see fabric and not the frame. This one is really stringy. Some of them are more stringy than others. All right, so then you stick it through and then guide it, and you're gonna wanna hit the holes of your fabric for this too, because it is thicker than yarn typically. And then you just pull it through and make sure it's laying together. And that glue and that fabric will hold that hoop in there nice and tight. One last one and then I'll move on. I think you got the point. Close stitches and guide them in, just like that. And then for this, to hide you won't knot this because it's on the front. So to do this one, you're gonna guide your needle through your last stitches and pull it tight. Like so, and then you will cut the fabric to be hidden within those stitches. And you will do that all the way around. And then for this long stitch next, we're going to use the same fabric strips, and I already have it threaded from before. Tie it in a knot. And here we'll go up on the one end. Here, so I did really long stitches. I just did one. You can do little stitches, or you can kind of do whatever you want once you learn this stitch. And you pull it through, and then you go over here, and this is why you want the gauge on the front, so you can kind of know where that line is, that straight line. And then you just insert it and pull it tight for your long stitch. And then you'll go at the next row up, insert your needle on this side to save your fabric, and then you'll just go down on this side. Super easy and super cute. Do one more. Go up on the back side. And over to down on the other side. And then you will knot it on the back for this one. I do have one note. If you will, or if you do plan to follow your lines around, when you get to the curves, it's going to, so straight, 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 and you just keep going straight, and then it won't, if you keep going straight, it'll be straight all the way up here, which actually could be kind of cool. But if you want it to curve around, then when you get up to here where you're gonna wanna turn, then you will basically start making shorter stitches here underneath the fabric. So here, I'll try to show you. So say I want to start turning, so you're gonna stay straight out here and pull it through. And if it ever gets where it's not pulling, then you probably got the fabric, since you're not looking at the back, you probably got, yeah, see how I went through the fabric of my strip. And in fact, it's really hard for fabric to go through fabric. So you'll go up that back side, and then instead of going here to keep going straight, you'll kind of just maybe go over here to hide it under that last stitch. You want to try and stay close to that bottom stitch, but you want it to be at an equal distance as this stitch. So then when you go back up, you go right, almost right next to it underneath that. So you're basically, your stitch is in the same area. And then I got the fabric again. And then you'll go out here to create a fanned look. And then this next one, I would probably go back to here to fill it in. So you kind of want to play with your stitches so they're not all straight and they're fanning out. So we'll tie that one off. So we did the poof, the straight, and the whip stitch. So now we're going to do the back stitch. So we got our lines, and the back stitch it is what it is. It's pretty easy. So you have your fabric strip, and before you cut all your fabric, you will want to make sure that it's working in the tool. If you have it too thick and doesn't go through the tool, then you might have some issues. But to thread the tool, you put it through the eye of the needle, hold it up here so you can push it down into the handle, pull it down, and then pull it through. And then once you're loaded, let's see. A note about design. A reason you want to do the back stitch at this point is because the poofies in this have some edging that you want your loops to cover. And if your loop's already there, it might be harder to do, or it might be harder to hide them. So it's just easier if you do these beginning stitches first. And then even over here, I have some green back here that you don't even see because the poofs are over it. And I liked it that way. So you want your poofs first to kind of see where your greens are going to go so it can kind of hide beneath it. So to do this, you want to start in the middle of your outline, push it through, go a couple of holes for your outline. And you punch. The 3 basics of punch needle are to graze the tip of your needle every time. Do not lift it up too high, because then you'll pull your yarn or your fabric. So graze your tip, insert it so your handle touches every single time, and leave your tail loose. Those are the 3 basics of punch needle. If you do that, your stitches should stay. And this, I actually worked row by row. So once I did this, I would actually turn and go back this way. And I think I did that because I was filling it in last. So you could do an outline if you want. And you're gonna go offset your stitches, so go in the middle of your last stitch. And for the fabric strips, sometimes if they're wide, they will stick in the fabric. And I found that if you just kind of guide it with your finger, like this one is sticking, and even kind of pull it, then it will stay, it's staying in for the loop, but this part is getting stuck on the back end, which is what you want to unstuck. So you might have to play with your tool a little bit more. And that is the back stitch. And the fabric stitches are super cute when you do a back stitch. And lastly is the fun weaving part. So you're gonna need your fabric strips and your tapestry needle. You can put your Oxford tools away. And then your macrame cord. So what I did with this is I laid out these strips like so, and then I would cut that off. So this is, I'll show you here, I guess. So it's gonna go this full length. So I would lay it out and then I'd cut it. And then lay another one out. I had some cut earlier, so I'll use that one. Lay this one out and cut it. Lay this one out and cut it. Lay it out and cut it. Lay it out and cut it. And you want them to kind of be close, because you can kind of see my monk's cloth a little bit. These are closer down here, and I like that a little bit better, but not too close, because then it might bunch up. So you kind of want to squeeze them together as you're putting them in here. And I would lay all of these out. Because then we're gonna sew them into place, and then you can just go in and out all the way down. But it might be easier for you if you want to do half of it, or just a couple rows to practice. Alright, I'd actually maybe start with that. Kind of bunch them together. And you can trim these when you're afterwards, so don't try too hard to get them straight. There's my needle. So thread your tapestry needle and tie a knot at the end. and then you're basically gonna go, you're skipping a row. So if you follow this one, I skipped this first row and then I went up and over and stitched it in. Skip that one, up and over and stitch the next row. And you stitch every other row to make that weave-like look. So once you have them laid out, you insert your needle into the back to let the knot take hold. And then you just kind of make sure these are laying in as you go and stitch. And sometimes you can kind of move them. And then you pull it tight to stitch it in. And then you'll skip that next row. Now when I was first learning this, I did a couple rows at a time. So if that's the way you want to do it, that might be. So you can kind of play with a couple rows before you do all of it. Just like that. And then when you get to the next row, we'll go down here. You will go about the equal distance. Mine are about a 1/2 inch apart. I have below mine, but you just go in the next, go offset that, so you're gonna stitch this next row. So you kind of go over a 1/2 inch and stitch that one in, and then skip a row. And stitch that one in. And one more. And stitch that one in. And then these did come up as I worked, and that's fine. You can kind of, because they're just stitched in with your stitch, you can move them as you wish to make them lay down, and push them down so they lay nicer. And then you will just tie it in a knot. Just like that. And so if we look at mine, these stitches they end here. And I added some there because they were kind of falling off. This one is pretty long, if you see that. But it seems to be staying okay, and I don't think a stitch at the very end would look pretty. So I have left that one. And then these, you get lucky because they're all kind of hidden, so it doesn't really matter what they look like. So that's what my piece looks like. And that's also why you want the poofs there, so you can make them so they kind of tuck underneath there. And that's what the back of it looks like. So these are crossing the rows, and those are all my stitches. So that's it. That's how to do it. A note about the design. I think it would look really, really cool if you did a wide stitch in this part, and maybe even in white, if it was all white with just the yellow. I thought about doing that, but it was kind of too late. So think about different ways to make it evolve. So this is, I kind of see this as being the moon, and this is the sun. So it's a sun and the moon. And this is the horizon, I guess. So that's kind of where I went with it. And I liked the green and the yellows, so that's why I did it this way. But you could really play with this. You could make this white strips and put the weaving part up here, or you could make a bigger poofier. But you could really go a lot with the design. Once you know these techniques, you could have a lot of fun with it and make a lot of different things, incorporating the weaving with the punch needle. That's it. That was the last of our 3-part series. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you created something that you love, and I hope you had fun while doing it. If you enjoyed this format, if you like going from one part to the next in a weekly class-like schedule, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think about this. This was kind of a fun format for me, and I'm wondering if you love it as well. So please let me know how you like it, and I hope you had fun.